Sheriff Martinez, thank you so much for being here with us on State House. I know this is one of your busiest times now with a new president, a new agenda, and a new strategic plan with regard to illegal immigration. You've got more on your plate than you probably ever had in your life, but it's the job you do, and you do it extremely well. And I think one of the things that we really wanted to talk about today was we've been doing a series on the border and trying to understand what's really going on the ground. You hear a lot on the news, and you hear a lot of pointing fingers and all those kinds of things. But what we really want to know is, for law enforcement that has to deal with illegal immigration coming through their counties, what's the impact? What are you having to do? What kind of funding are you getting? And what are kind of some of the strategies you're having to employ on now that deportation is kind of at least part or more part of the strategy for this new administration?
Well, I can definitely say that deportation is not being done quick enough, right? We've had so many of these known criminals that got in because of the previous administration. I can say that now that they're they're getting deportation is in place, and Holman is doing a great job in trying to get it done swiftly and careful. They got to be careful with it too, because these are hardened criminals. And I've always said that, you bring people in from Venezuela, they have their own culture, and as a part of their own culture, as you would Mexico, they take care of their own. If something happens, they're going to go out there and just take care of business. They don't rely on due process. It's not in the vocabulary.
Right.
Okay. So what I can say here in Brooks County, though, I started here back in '09. I retired from DPS after 29 years of the state police. So what I inherited was the dead bodies, the number one dead bodies here in Brooks County. So we had 129 one year back in 2012. And
where were these showing up?
These dead bodies, they're immigrants that were left behind by El Coyote, and they either got sick or they just died of dehydration, or it just got too cold that one night and they just kind of froze over, hypothermia. So it all depends on the conditions that they were in. So we've been keeping a tally of these things. We're almost to 1,000 since '09 to now. But back in 2012, it cost this county $700,000 for autopsies, transportation, everything else that goes with it, right? And since then, I've been trying to recover that money from the federal government, which to no avail. I did meet with DHS Americas on 3 different occasions.
Yeah.
And all he said was, write me a letter and we'll see what we can do. And it kind of like, got a little bit frustrated with him during the last meeting, simply because he was all excited because he handed an NGO, a Catholic charity, a check for $1 million. And I kindly raised my hand and said, all we need is $700,000. And it's all accounted for. We broke down all the costs and everything as needed for them to do, and it hasn't happened. So in saying that, though, we have come across actually criminals that are actually backpacking narcotics also through the brush, okay? The issue there, though, the hunters will call us and let us know, hey, I got a guy leading it. He's got a long rifle, and at the end there's someone else with a long rifle. But by the time we would get to them, the long rifles are buried, and so is the dope. It's buried. So they lost that load, right? So all Border Patrol would do was just round them up and take them. Now, in this past, fast forward to this last administration that was here, the fact is that the numbers went down and everyone is excited. Well, they're excited for the wrong reason, because they did everything they could to get them to come in clearly with no resistance. The administration did.
Yeah.
The CBP Act 1 was one of the main issues that they used, one of the way to get themselves vetted in. So they came in, and we know this for a fact. We had a call out at a ranch west of us, a female from the state of Mississippi. she was a Spanish speaking from, I think it was from Mexico, and she was out there in the field trying to look for immigrants because she was going to take them food, and she had this CBP app 1 on her, right?
Sign them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, you're trespassing. We need to get you removed from this property. And I believe that she went on her way back to Houston. She was from Houston. So the narrative back then was the fact that you can get yourself in. We just need to do A, B, C, and D, right? And you'll be able to come in.
Right.
So that kind of put that whole burden on the country. Okay, especially as you know, we're 70 miles north of the river, so they're just passing through. That's just.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You know, when you were talking about the bodies being found, you know, that you find, we're not that far from the border, and so as they come through, they're just trekking through all this ranch land. Which, how much of this county? I mean, you can drive around here and you can tell this is very rural. Tell me about how much is it ranch land around here?
944 square miles.
944 square miles. A lot of area to have to try to cover with people just kind of going through the brush.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have one of the busiest checkpoints here in Brooks County also. So that's also contributes to the fact that they have to circumvent the checkpoint.
Right.
Right. So that creates another issue for us because we have a lot of lost collars, right? And then we have the dead bodies. And you add that on to the rape victims that no one talks about, that no one asks me about, because we do have rape victims. So there's a lot of.
And these are all the illegals that are coming across, and they've been subject to being raped by the coyotes and everybody else.
Exactly, and they know they're going to have some type of sexual encounters, so they protect themselves. So they already know it's going to happen, right? So, and it's frustrating because no one, not even NGOs, ask about these rape victims.
Can I ask you a question about the NGOs? Because I've heard a lot about the NGOs, and the more I hear about it, the sort of angrier I get every time I hear about it. So, you know, just going back to something you said a minute ago, you spent around $700,000 on autopsies on some of these, and we're saying it like it's sort of normalized that these illegal immigrants have died in these ranches around here, and you're having to collect them, and then you come in and you have to do an autopsy, and you go through the whole process, and you were trying to get that money back from the federal government, and then Mayorkas gives $1 million to an NGO, Catholic Charities. And what I keep hearing, instead of giving it to you, to the county, who doesn't have a lot of money to work with, counties just traditionally don't. You know, you can't tax your way. You know, you can't tax the public so much to cover all these kinds of things that come into the county that you're not expecting. But I'm hearing, at least a number of times, that the money that's being given to these NGOs is actually being used almost to what you mentioned just a minute ago, that they actually are sending people out and helping people to bring them across the border, and sometimes even going across the border and helping them, you know, with maps and everything, and helping them cross the border into the United States. How much are you seeing of that? I mean, is this something that's just common?
I would say they're facilitating the crossings back during the last administration.
Okay.
That's what they're doing, facilitating it. Okay. That's pretty much in a nutshell.
Is it people that are part of, you know, so I've worked with Catholic Charities on a number of different issues, and, you know, there's probably a core group of people that probably work Catholic Charities that are doing it for the right reasons. Is it people that have infiltrated these NGOs that are now abusing the system by taking that money and doing that?
Well, you know, I've always said there's three issues I deal with here: the national security issue, right, a public health issue, and a humanitarian issue, in that order, right? So they take the humanitarian issue seriously, as I do, but you need to look, first of all and foremost, the national security issue. We need to make sure we know who these people are, you know, and it is frustrating because, you know, I have friends that have been waiting almost 20 years just to become a citizen.
Right.
Right, and then for them to get kicked back to the end of the line because they're going to accommodate others that just decided to come in. You know, they really never discussed all the crime that's within that group as they wait to come over. That's left out, right? So we really have to get a good look at what's occurring in there and not hide it, because there's always a crime being done. And that's what we deal with in our end, because, you know, they become victims. And then I get these calls from the Carolinas, New Jersey, New York, California, Colorado, that I'm getting a call from the coyote saying they need the extra $10,000 so they can release my loved one.
Another family member.
Another family member.
Yeah.
So where is the justice in that? Okay, where is the justice in the rape victims? Where is the justice in those that lay out there? And I mean, we're still finding skeletal from 36 months ago. Okay, right. So I have, it's they just don't get it. That, or they don't want to get it.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the previous administration, because they never talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, as NGOs don't ever address it. So, on the humanitarian side of my part, you know, I have a morgue, so I do the best I can to get them identified with various universities such as Texas State, Indianapolis, Baylor, University of Texas at Austin, so Texas A&M, UTRGV out of the Valley.
Yeah, that's right.
It's too full for them because they're students and they want to really get the feel as to what happens out there. Because right now it's a comfortable day out there, right? In the summer for us, maybe 105, 110, and then the humidity, it gets real hot. In the cold weather, as you know, we have some real cold spells sometimes, okay? So it varies. We just, and there are only 70 miles north of the river, and I got almost 1,000 bodies I already collected. God. Where is the justice? Where is that? You know, how does that come into this picture here that no one has paid attention to?
Sheriff, do you think that now that we're kind of in a new age, a new era, where there are actually the agencies that are supposed to be doing the things are being, are now allowed to do the things they do, like Border Patrol and ICE? Are you seeing more of those agents in this area? Have you requested them? How does that work in the process of getting these deportations?
Well, the fact is that I'm 70 miles north of the river, so the emphasis is along the river to deter, right? Okay. That's the emphasis. So I know that the military's coming in. Right. I know I don't know, this week should have been dropped off in McAllen Airport. They were coming into McAllen. I know Del Rio's got some up there, Eagle Pass. So along the southwest corridor, they're coming in. But a lot of times, the fact that we're 70 miles north and they're on the river, and the state of Texas is still also out there operating alongside them, and the enforcement action, it's a big plus. So that's occurring. So that minimizes them. But what's happening now, though, is that the fact that they just can't walk over with the CB1 AB, they're going to go out and get with the organized transnational gangs to help them come across. So that's going to become a problem. It's going to be more confrontational with local law enforcement because they got paid to get them across, so they need to do that.
Yeah.
So now we need to go back to the truck tractors. We need to go back to those that are bedded underneath a platform on the trailer. So where is the humanitarian issue on that? Right?
Yeah, nobody talks about it.
No one talks about it.
No.
Right? They're really treated like animals, or probably harder than that.
Probably worse.
Yes.
I mean, if you put an animal and stuck them underneath a truck and made them ride for hundreds of miles, and you go to jail.
Exactly. That's unacceptable.
No.
It's like Bexar County has experienced a couple of those truck tractors that are in there. So that's a real sad situation, right? So putting everything into perspective, I'm just, I'm really excited that this new administration, the way it's coming in, I know it's coming in hard, and when there's changes, there's resistance.
Yeah.
And we get that. But the resistance is for the good. It's good for America. And it's good for those that want to come in and do it correctly. Because a lot of those still, there's a lot of Latinos out there, Hispanic people, population that agree what Trump is doing. in this case, just because they waited so long. They got here correctly.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. We all have to recognize that.
You know, you and I were talking earlier off camera and about our own families, and we both of our grandparents came from Mexico.
Correct.
They crossed the border like that normally I've had some cross, you know, in Texas and some cross in Arizona, and then they became citizens. They made their application, and then they got jobs, and then they worked their way up, and they feel, you know, a real love for the country because they're here because they want to be here, and they work their way, and they're paying their taxes, they're putting their kids through school, and they're watching their kids, you know, be successful, giving them a work ethic. And these are all things that are kind of almost seem sort of just normal and natural to people like you and I. You know, we're pretty close to the same age. And so it really boggles my mind trying to understand why people don't understand that Latinos think that it's wrong to cross illegally, and to push somebody who's trying to do it the right way, push them to the back of the line. Because if you came over in the last 4 years, you were given credit cards and a phone and health care and a nice hotel to stay in, and all these things that people that I know that have been waiting, they don't get that. They're just trying to make their, you know, pay rent and do the things that they do on a daily basis and raise their kids. It's very frustrating to see that, because I think as the time goes on and as the deportations are going to, right now you're getting the criminal element, but as time goes on and you start, you know, moving into just people that maybe been living here for some years, but they're still have committed a crime by coming across the border and need to go back across. I think what's going to happen, it's going to ramp up in the rhetoric that, you know, people like yourself and law enforcement are going to have to deal with. And, you know, we hope, you know, these kinds of conversations get out to enough people so they understand, you know, this isn't a game and these are real people, and by encourage them to come across, you're actually causing them more harm, you know, than anything else. They don't come over, they don't find the dream here.
Well, absolutely, because even, you know, I went up to Wisconsin to put on a program because they were having issues with the immigrants that were up there. They weren't getting paid the correct amount of salaries, so to speak. Well, of course not. They weren't documented. Okay, yeah. So they're going to be taking advantage of it. So how can we allow that to happen? Why can't we just vet them the way they should be, and they can go anywhere in the U.S.
right,
and get the monies that the union pays?
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So, you know, we should be able to see this. So where is that in? I mean, I don't get it, really. It's very difficult to understand how they're thinking because, you know, now their narrative is everything is shifted the blame over to this current administration that just started,
yeah,
what, 8-9 days ago? I don't
right.
know, something like that.
Less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks, right?
Right.
So it's just difficult, you know, and I don't know. I was raised to take if there was a blame to do it, you raise up your hand and said, I did the wrong thing.
Right.
Okay? Just take blame for it.
Yeah.
And they don't do that. Yeah. And that's the easiest thing to do.
It's called having character.
Okay, that's correct. The core value went away. They left.
Core values,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
It's gone. You know, my mother didn't speak English, you know, and I used to go to the store with her, and there was a nice white gentleman there, the manager, white gentleman. So my mama would relate to him either vertical or horizontal for yes or no. Simple. And she'd go on about her business. You know, but you know, I was very grateful for him to be understanding.
Yeah.
And knew my mama's condition, yeah. Right? I didn't know English when I started school, so we filtered through that. Yeah. So you go through all this process, yeah. And then you understand where's the equality here, right?
Right.
And then in here you got this narrative that's negative, but all we're trying to do is the right thing,
right, for
everyone.
Yeah, I guess it seems like it should be easy to understand, and maybe, you know, maybe it is easier for yourself and myself, and my dad, and our families to understand that because of the process that we've gone through. But I was the people that are the loudest about how unfair, deporting illegal aliens are. They're usually the people that, to me, have the least amount of life experience, and maybe get all of their information off of social media. Now, granted, I'm on social media, but I'm hoping that the information that we're giving is going to be, thoughtful information, and that's why we have people like you, Sheriff, on, because we need to understand what's really going on instead of, just somebody creating a false narrative.
I mean, if they just sit down and create something that's viable to everyone, in terms of those illegals coming across, and vet them correctly, and get proper ID, fingerprints, etc., then we'll know who's who. Right now, we don't, and there's millions of folks that came in that we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And we need to correct that, and it takes time to correct it, but you got to start somewhere. Yeah. The only concern I have that this administration only has 48 months to do this.
Yeah,
and we will run out of time.
I was just going to mention that's a perfect point to make. Is I don't think people really realize it's really 2 years.
Yes,
not 4 years, because
correct.
The next election cycle will start in 2 years.
Yes.
So if people think that he's coming out strong, it's because if he doesn't get it done in that 48 months, you nailed it. You're exactly right. Then it's likely going to have problems in the last 2 years.
The midterm elections are going to be just as important.
Yeah,
because that's going to set the trend for the next 24 months.
That's right.
So it's critical. Yeah. It really is, because we might end up back where we started, and it could be worse. But no, I think we need to be just go forward and doing what we're doing, and just make it happen, make it work.
I'll ask you a question about. I was listening to some of the hearings this morning, the congressional hearings, and they were talking about. I believe JFK, RFK was before I believe it was a Senate Appropriations Committee. I think he was doing his first hearing. But they were talking a lot about, because HHS will have jurisdiction over a lot of the things that are going on with children. I think it's refugee reassignment and some of things like that. So somewhere in there, he's going to have, if confirmed, he will have control over that area. And so they were talking about what they're saying, around 300,000, maybe more, children that went missing, and they've found a number of them, maybe tens of thousands of them, and a lot of them have been sexually abused. A lot of them have been and got into the sex trade and sex trafficked, and then also a lot of them just were sort of indentured servants or slaves as to whatever group they're with. The question I have, and that was a long way of getting there, but have you discovered any of those children, the missing children? Are you finding that they're anywhere in this area or in Texas? Are you seeing any of that? Or
not here? Of course, they're just passing through. See, this is happening because the fact that someone is coming across and using that child as a shield, and they paid this child's biological mother or dad X amount of money to utilize the child as a shield. Okay, this is what happens at the end of the day. Again, where is the just in that, right? I mean, there's so many factors that no one is looking at.
Yeah,
and that's technically that's what happens, not only to children but to adults. You get your traffic smuggling, your human smuggling, you get your money laundering, you get your drug transportation smuggling. So there's a lot of crimes that are being committed here that no one even put any emphasis into it until now.
And so really, Brooks County is kind of like a wall trying to stop whatever's coming up from the border. You're trying to stop as many as you possibly can. And of course, you've got a tsunami, or you've had a tsunami. I know that I understand things have slowed down now, but that's only because, you've got a lot of military, along the border now and all that. They're still going to be coming in different ways. Like you said, they'll go back to the old smuggling routes.
Yes.
But you're having to, of 944,000 acres.
Square miles. Yes.
Square miles.
Square miles.
You're having to with how big is your force here? If you,
I run with 5 deputies out.
5 deputies.
Yes.
And you're supposed to be able to, you're doing your best to try to block those people from coming up through, because what happens, as you just mentioned, they're just passing through to get them somewhere else where they can traffic them to do some other awful thing.
That's correct. And just last Thursday, I guess a week from Wednesday Wednesday of last week, we had a truck that ventured through the brush on Caliche Road. Back then, we had oil back here, and there's real good roads they can travel on, Caliche roads. So they cut fences, they cut gates, and they made it all the way to 285, which is a 25-mile trip through the ranch lands.
Wow.
We got the truck. The truck was stolen out of Dallas. There was 9 that was taken into custody, from Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, and various other countries. So now that's what they're doing. Instead of them walking them through, they're driving them through. Just because of the lack of manpower, right? The lack of support, because a lot of the Border Patrol agents have been doing other things besides guarding the front line,
Right.
so to speak. So that's happening. That's happened several times already.
Wow. So it's almost like really you're really the front line, really, because they're passing so quickly through the border that it's really when you come inward into Texas a little bit, that's really the new front line, which is, that's pretty. I don't know if people realize this that are listening. Texans do, but if you try to drive across the state of Texas, this is a enormous state. You can drive for 2 days and still be in Texas. So when people don't even realize how big a place like Brooks County is, when you have that many hundreds of thousands of square miles, it's of nothing. Brush.
A lot of private land, right?
And private land, yeah.
And I've always told it almost the size of Manhattan, except it's not populated.
Yeah.
We got a lot of cattle, a lot of game, wildlife,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
But a lot of property damage occurring, I'm everyone is real grateful because Governor Abbott and these people up in Austin put some bills together where they can get reimbursed for damages. So I'm very active supporter of the governor for what he's done, and they've helped Brooks County a lot.
Yeah, I noticed that there are a lot. The legislative session does have a lot of border security type bills, and I did see some of that coming out recently. Hopefully, the House and Senate can get together and make these things happen. And I did a podcast a while back about the conflict at the Capitol. I'm not going to ask you about that. I just but getting anything done right now is tough, just because we have a lot of conflict inside of the Republican Party, and that needs to be resolved so that we can fix these really critical problems. Because everybody around here, around these houses, they are expecting you to protect them. I mean, you came with 5 people. I mean, it's
and that's what we do, right? Because we take an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States and of our state. So as a sheriff, that's what we do. We just defend the Constitution, the rule of law. Yeah. Simple. No more, no less. And if we're wrong, the courts will tell us we're wrong. Okay? The system is in place.
Yeah.
We just got to follow it.
And Operation Lone Star, I think it's been, as we were discussing a little bit earlier, has really been very helpful to at least law enforcement, and particularly the sheriffs, with the big counties, being able to communicate and pass information and that sort of thing. You were telling me a little bit about that. Maybe mention how that's been so helpful.
Oh yes, because it's a group of law enforcement sheriffs that came together, and it runs from just north of Goliad, south of Fort Bend, all the way down to Brooks, and then we kind of worked through Jim Hogg and over towards Zapata. But what it is, we just share intel, right? If we know something is happening or organization is doing something that we just can't get to it, we'll put it out, and then the sheriff up north would maybe set people out to figure out, okay, is it coming? If so, if not, let's intercept it if we can, and you got to develop your own probable cause to go along with it. This is just intel, question mark, this vehicle, maybe, needs to be looked at. So we'll develop our own probable cause, and that officer from there will proceed with it. If he's got enough to proceed, if not, one on them, right?
Right.
And that's the way it is. It's pretty simple. I think we know how the Constitution states, so we'll do that. We got to respect that.
Do you think that, I guess we really don't really know exactly how the deportation process is now that we're kind of in that phase of things. There, people that are here now are going to be deported back to their country of origin. What role? I know you are responsible for trying to find these people and trying to stop them from coming through. It doesn't sound like anything's really slowed down. You're still catching people coming through, so it's not like the border has been sealed off. So that's going to be a continuing problem. But then the people that are here already, going back the other way, how do you see Brooks County get involved in that?
It all, I see it very minimal, simply because this new administration now is prosecuting, right? Even those that are just traversing through the brushland,
Yeah.
they're prosecuting, versus not being prosecuted in the previous administration.
So if you caught some bailouts of people somewhere here in the county, and then you put them in your county jail, which is probably the first thing you would do is you. Previously, did you notify ICE or what was the process before?
Okay, so what we would do prior to this, because we had a lot of pursuits back then, Border Patrol would come and secure all the bodies and so what.
Okay.
So when the governor came in with their bill to where you can file on them for trespassing, with the consent of the ranch owner or the landowner saying, yes, I want them prosecuted.
Okay.
Then we had that tool to take them into custody, and through the governor's office, they created a processing center. So that's where they would go. Okay. So that'll alleviate the population at the sheriff's own jail, own detention center, right? So the state will pick up that.
They start picking that. Okay, so
yes.
that's how it helps.
That's how it's done.
Okay.
Now the fact that they're changing the venue in terms of prosecution on the federal side, Border Patrol takes them and they will get prosecuted for unlawful entry. So that's happening now.
Okay.
But it wasn't happening prior, so the governor had to take his initiative, to pass some laws to make sure that we take care of the immigration issue that was occurring during the previous administration.
And fund it.
And
fund everything that
Absolutely.
had, because nobody from the,
And as you well know, Governor Abbott is asking for $22.1 billion, I think, from the federal government.
Right.
And I hope he gets that, because it took every single dollar from that to make this happen.
Well, thank God, he was willing to stick his neck out and do that, and the people supported it.
Absolutely.
People of Texas supported it.
Absolutely.
And still do. Yeah, I think there's much better chance of obviously him getting reimbursed now that Trump's in office. The next phase is going to be very interesting. Where this is going to go. I know that we want to come back around again, maybe as we get to the sort of the next phase. I think as far as going after the criminal element, that the way that the Tom Homan is in his group is doing is, I don't know how long that's going to last, because it's quite a few people. But then once they start going into households and finding people that have just been living here, I think it's going to change the whole dynamic again. And I'm just wondering how it's going to affect some of the smaller counties later on down the line.
We'll just have to wait and see on that part, right?
Yeah.
So, I had Tom Homan here at the office some time back, and actually he went out into the brush, and I think he assisted on a body that we recovered. All right, so he actually went hands-on on a body that was recovered. Again, through the governor's office initiative, the morgue that I have, I think I'm the only sheriff in Texas that has a morgue that we have bodies in there. We currently have bodies from Zapata County that don't, not Zapata, I'm sorry, Zavala County,
Zavala.
that they don't have the means to maintain them, to secure them. So we're going to hold them until we finalize the identification, and then pass them, put them back to Zavala County so they can finish up whatever is that needs to be done in terms of identification, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's all working out for us in this end.
Yeah.
Just because of the governor stepped up and said, hey, we got to take care of this.
Yeah. I tell you, it's really heartening to hear that how hard you are working out here. I'm sure the people of this county really appreciate you, and I very much appreciate you taking some time out of doing what you have to do every day to come talk to us. But our viewers and listeners really want to know what's going on because they don't really get the full picture. I think from the legacy media and from just the stuff they read online. There's just so much, and I one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted people that are actually working the issue like yourself and your team to talk to us and tell us, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we need, and this is how it's affecting us, and we really appreciate that.
I think I can see a lot of the audience where it's out of sight, out of mind, right? It's not in my backyard. I can't help that some of my ranchers here have a 50,000 acre backyard, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing as you would have a square footage backyard in Houston or Dallas.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want 100 people going through there.
You don't want anybody going through there.
Okay, you follow me?
Yes, I do.
So it's very simple.
Yeah.
It's the same principle. We had some NGOs from California would want to come in and just walk into these ranch lands, and I'm sorry, you can't do that. Yeah. Not in Texas. We're not going to do that. We're not in Arizona, and we're not in
particularly in
California.
Texas. That's right.
Exactly. So and they understood.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of effort with we have a lot of collaboration with the ranch owners, but they want to do what's right also. But they also need to protect their property.
Yeah.
And their family members. And it got to a point where it wasn't getting there.
I've always found it very. When you say that out of sight, out of mind, that's so true. And I find that with most issues. I've been working in politics for my entire career. And the one thing I've realized is that it's very difficult to explain issues like this and how it affects somebody who, like you say, is in Houston and then nobody's walking through their backyard where their pool is and their nice garden and everything, or any metropolitan area. But how does that impact them? Well, all of this has to be paid for. And that money is coming out of, right now, the last 4 years, out of the Texas budget. And that means that money's coming out of your pocket somewhere. And so it does impact them directly. And they may not think it does, but, it absolutely impacts even more the people of the region where it's happening, because those tax dollars for that county are raised from the people that live in this county. And so you have to, if you didn't have someone like Governor Abbott that was willing to back you up, and I know it's difficult for counties to get money.
And I know that it is difficult because during our peak and times when the human smuggling was active here, we had 12 stash houses here in Brooks County, 12. Wow. And the reason that it got noticed is because we had a Walmart here that got disbanded, just shut down. But Walmart lost about $250,000 through Western Union, and they notified DHS, and it trickled back down to us like, hey, what's happening over there? Well, this is what's happening. Yeah. And I always like to be very plain English when I speak, because I want to speak to that grandma and grandpa. I want to speak to those persons that they really need to understand what I'm saying, and don't get them confused in conversation, or use something, some type of English language that they don't understand.
Right.
Just common sense. We go back to this common sense thought that we talked about earlier.
Right.
Because it takes that. It takes that to get people to understand what we've gone through,
Yeah.
what we're going through. You know, Lieutenant Governor, for instance, when they paid all the sheriffs to be at the minimum of $75,000, right? I was at $20,000 up until that point.
Wow.
My salary was $20,000 up to that point. Didn't say much, just kept on working.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't ask for it. It just came on down.
Yeah.
So a lot of things like that occurs. I mean, I think people need to get involved with true facts, good news, versus hypothetical news. What if? Because we can what if something to death,
Yeah.
and it doesn't get done at the end of the day. Because I've been through that myself when I used to do my work. But they would question, well, what if this? What if this? Well, guess what? Why don't I just stay home and just pay me?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
because I don't believe in what if.
No, you solve the problem.
You solve the
deal
problem.
with the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's unreal how people can come up with things. What if?
Well, and it's also frustrating. I know for particularly for law enforcement when you have, some of the counties that have or cities that have created themselves as a sanctuary city, thinking that they're being humanitarian, and I put that in air quotes because it's not really humanitarian. I mean, I think they feel better about themselves saying that they're sanctuary cities, and nobody is saying that the people that are being trafficked shouldn't be taken care of. These people, I mean, they shouldn't be treated the way that they're being treated, is what I mean to say. And I think there's one thing about trying to help these people that have been forced into this, life, some because of whatever circumstances, and all the draws of other people here in the U.S. drawing them to this side, sort of like the last administration did by acting like there was no border. But at the end of the day, those same poor people that they say that they're going to take care of end up in the worst situation. They don't end up in a good situation.
Why is it that we always have to take care of other countries when we actually providing funds for them?
Yeah.
So where is that country? I've always said that. Where is their country? Why can't they take care of their own?
Yeah.
That's what their government is for. There's a lot of corruption here. We all know that.
Yeah.
I know that. Personally know that.
Yeah.
So, you can't tell me something that I haven't experienced already.
Yeah.
Right? So they don't understand that. Back when I was growing up, I grew up here in Brooks County. We would have one or two walk by the house. We'd give them the taco, a bean taco, water, and then move on. These are different folks now.
Yeah.
Because now they're coming, hey, I need to use your electricity so I can charge on my phone. Or I need for you to take me. They're not asking. They're telling us we need to take them somewhere.
Yeah.
You need to get me there.
I do.
Okay,
I do.
so there's a lot of difference there in communication versus the way it used to be. Because we helped them come across.
Yeah.
They would come and, hey, you food, you hungry? Here. Okay, I'm leaving now. Okay, boom, that was it.
Yeah.
Now it's different. Now they want something. Hell, they'll jump on tractors and go cross country with them. They've done it before.
That's crazy.
There's a lot of damage there. So realistically, we really have to put our thoughts, wrap ourselves around this issue, and then be very conservative about how we think about it, and not say we feel sorry for them. Well, where's their government?
Yeah. Yeah. Their government is blaming us, and that they don't want these people back, even though that they're citizens. And so, you reminded me of a story. I used to, when I would go hunting with my dad. It was probably not far from around here. I can't remember exactly where we were, but we would be out in our camp, at night, and we were deer hunting. So we had our camp set up in the middle of nowhere, and had a campfire, and we'd be sitting around there. And then, a group of guys would come strolling into camp very slowly, and it scared the hell out of me. I didn't know what was going on. I really didn't even know what was happening. Mm-hmm. And I just remember, to your point, my dad and my uncle who were there, and some of their other buddies that were there, they give them a plate, they'd feed them and stuff, and then those guys would pack up and take off. And I just always wondered, I kept thinking, well, who were these guys walking through the woods back then? I was young, so I didn't really know. But, they were very kind and they just needed a little bit of food, and then they would. So it's been going on a long time, obviously. But you're right. I've heard that the whole, that there's sort of an entitlement now when they come across and they just take what they want, and they don't really respect our laws here. They just sort of do whatever they want, and that's kind of they've been told it's okay because they don't get prosecuted, right?
That's correct. Entitlement. That's the key word.
Yeah. Well, I am very much appreciative of your time and your service to to the state of Texas, and I know that Governor Abbott, I'm sure he's absolutely thrilled with everything that you're doing here to protect the public, and I'm just very honored that you took some time with us on State House, and we hope to swing back by here maybe in another month or so when things maybe change or some new rules come down. We'll see what happens, but we'd love to
positive going
make something
here.
positive,
Yeah.
and we'd love to come down and talk to you again about that.
Thanks for reaching out. I got a lot of respect for Sheriff Boyd. Great gentleman.
Yeah,
because he is a gentleman. I think
sure is.
all law enforcement people are. You know what? I can't say we have bad apples, but the system is there to handle those.
Yeah.
So other than that, I mean, it's all good. And, here I am 45 years later, still doing it.
Still doing it. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No
sir.
worries. Thank you.